If you're feeling desperate to get out of a rut or even a decline in your health due to your struggles to eat right, you and I are in the same boat. And there is hope and help. My guest today will share the keys to how we can turn our health around. Welcome to Happiness Adventure. I'm Lisa, and together we'll explore ways to cultivate real joy in our lives. Now, I want to talk to you about how you started, because you have a fascinating story of how you realized that genetics aren't what determines us, but in the same family and the same genetics, lifestyle had effects. So tell us a little bit about
genetics is mostly mother and dad teach the children how to eat, whether or not to smoke or exercise. It's an education, and you need to believe that. You can't believe it's locked into your genes, because that gives you really no options.
Yeah.
Instead, you must believe it's an educational issue, and it really is.
How did you come to understand that?
Well, I was, many avenues took me there. One was my personal health. I was a very sick man. At 18, I had a massive stroke.
Wow.
There was a time I weighed 90 pounds more than I do now. And so I had poor health, which gives me the right to talk about this. And that is all really it gives me. And the other thing is my frustration in medicine. No matter how hard I tried, my patients wouldn't get better, those with chronic disease. And I thought I was a terrible doctor.
Yeah.
And this is what I love, being a doctor. I wanted to help people. So I had this opportunity, which was golden. It changed my life. I went to Hawaii to do my internship. After my internship, I took a job as the sugar plantation doctor on the Big Island of Hawaii. And there I had a chance to take care of first, second, third, and fourth generation Filipinos, Japanese, Chinese, and Koreans. And what I observed there was something that people can still observe worldwide, is my first generation patients who were, say, raised in Japan or the Philippines the first part of their life, learned to diet rice and vegetables, which they stuck with. Their kids who were born in Hawaii, they started going to Texas Drive-In and McDonald's, etc. And what I saw, taking care of first, second, third, and fourth generation, is progressive increase in obesity and sickness. No change in the work in the plantation for 100 years, same genes, only the change.
What a powerful case study, because you had the same genes implementing different lifestyle changes.
Right there in front of me.
The effects. Yeah. Fascinating. Well, let's talk about food poisoning.
All right.
You've spent over 40 years learning what poisons the human body and what heals it. So what are the poisons that we're consuming?
All right. What this is an educational technique. If I told you to quit smoking, you would say, all I have to do is quit putting these things in my mouth.
Yeah.
That's it. Pretty easy. Clean air. It's right around here.
Yeah.
Told you to quit drinking. Same thing. Drop the bottle. Don't drink. Period. You know what to do. It's easy.
Yep.
Food is hard. People are telling you all kinds of things. Skin your chicken. Buy skim milk. Get my GMO added or free. Boy, people are just absolutely confused on what to do.
Yeah.
And they're given no direct, simple advice like, stop the cigarettes, stop the booze, stop shooting the stuff up.
Yeah.
So what I did is I put food poisons in two categories. Animal foods. Okay, so whether it's frog's eyes or lamb's toes or whatever, hoofs or whatever, you can't eat it.
Grass-fed, organic.
Doesn't matter what it is. All animal foods. Look, it's not our diet. Okay, it's a diet of a cat. So put in a block all animal foods. You just don't eat those. The thing you don't need is free oils.
Okay.
These are oils that have been derived, say, from peanuts or oranges or whatever. Rice.
Anything where it's extracted.
Right, because they're just isolated chemicals, what they are. And they're, are the highest calorie dense foods of all. So they're probably the leading cause of obesity.
Yeah.
And they promote cancer as much as anything I can think of. So you need to stay away from the free oils, like the corn oil, the olive oil, etc.
Okay.
The canola oil. And the animal foods. And you go, look, I got nothing to eat.
Yeah.
There's nothing left. That's all I eat. And really for most Americans, that's all they eat.
Yeah.
Maybe they touch a salad or something. So at that point, when they're in desperation, I tell them, the reason you can't find anything to eat is you've been taught lies about starch. Okay. You are a starchitarian, a starchivore, a starch eater. And until you understand that, you will not have control or success.
Okay.
And you say, well, why would you tell me that? And I said, well, it's because 99% of the people that ever walked this earth got the bulk of their calories from starch. I mean, you think about the people from Central America. They had civilizations for 800 to 1300 years. These Aztecs and Mayans are known as the people of the corn. Most of their diet was corn. You go down a little further south to the Incas. They live on potatoes.
Yeah.
In Asia, it's rice. So really, over 99% of the population that's ever walked this planet has gotten the bulk of their calories from starch. And there's never been a heart disease, an adult type diabetes epidemic, etc., ever in human history except among the kings and queens, the rich people. And the problem is that we've developed a world where half the people can afford to eat like kings and queens.
Yeah. Well, I know starches are also so filling and satisfying, and that's one of the reasons you say that they're a key. But right now, especially, I think currently it's keto, but there's caveman and paleo. How do people make sense that what they heard from someone else or another doctor, how do they tease it all out and know what to do?
You know, it's hard, particularly if you hear them on the radio and you can't see them. You can't see how fat and sick they look. You get them in front of a TV screen, people like Robert Atkins and Lauren Cordain and Sally Fallon and Barry Sears, his own guy. You see a bunch of fat people trying to teach you how to be thin.
Yeah.
That's one way to do it. The other way to do it is, well, you can read your Bible. It tells you how to eat, or probably the Quran tells you how to eat.
Yeah.
I mean, this is human history that goes back for thousands of years. Or you take the trouble to read the research as I have. And I wouldn't even estimate how many hours I've spent in my life reading scientific literature. It all says it. The truth is the truth.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm at the point now in my understanding what goes on, so I can see how the cheaters cheat. So.
How do they cheat? What are some of the ways that what can we look for so that we know? Because I know this is a really powerful diet. And I think the first step is people convincing themselves it is, so then they then have the determination to go and implement it.
You know, what I would do is I would take and ask people to use their own personal knowledge. I don't want them to become believers. I want them to become observers.
Yes.
And I want their eyes to be open. And think about some of the things that I've said so far and some of the things you hopefully will read that I've written or watched that I've said. You'll say, well, that makes sense. I've seen that. I've seen the fact that there were 2 billion Asians 30 years ago and not a single fat one.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen that. You know, I look at pictures of old cowboys and Indians. No fat ones.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, they're a big experience. And think about some of the foods you've eaten and how you felt afterwards. And it's just like you told me, oh, I love starch. Well, why do you love starch?
Yeah.
It's because you're a starch eater. You know, you don't like meat. I can't get people eat boiled chicken or boiled beef. They won't eat it.
Yeah.
They want me to cover it up with something. So how could something you love so much, which has taste buds for it, specifically for starch, which 99.99% of the people ever walked this earth lived on, and it's so cheap, inexpensive, and good for the environment, how could you come to any other conclusion?
That's true.
You know, I mean, there are people out there that try and defend their bad habits. You talk to a smoker, they'll tell you they'll get so nervous if they try to quit smoking, they get killed in a car accident.
Yeah.
You know, we're that kind of a being. We're always trying to justify.
Yeah.
So.
Well, let's address really quickly 2 common, I guess, arguments against the poison avoidance. So let's talk about protein and protein deficiency, which is often brought up as a reason not to avoid animal products.
All right.
What do you say to that?
Well, first of all, there's never been a case of protein deficiency ever reported in the world literature. So it doesn't exist. Ever.
Why are we still talking about it then?
Well, it's because of unique positioning. What industry does, as normal practice, is to take something specifically unique about their product and they advertise it as beneficial. Like, for example, fuel-efficient cars. They advertise the fuel efficiency. They don't advertise the flimsiness of the car and how you get likely to get killed in an accident by driving one.
Yeah. So they're missing the big picture.
Well, what they're doing is they're doing business. That's all. They're uniquely positioning. So what's unique about meat? Protein. So what they've done is they've created a scientific and public society where people believe protein is the most important nutrient of all, yet there's never been a case of dietary protein deficiency. Now, excess protein is very harmful. Excess protein is not stored in the muscles. It's not burned as energy, except under dire circumstances. What it is dumped through the liver and out through the kidneys. In the process, it does liver damage, kidney damage, causes damage to the bones because it's a high acid food, causes kidney stones. So high protein is not innocuous. It's a dangerous message.
Wow.
But it's the one industry has chosen because it's unique. Unique.
Yeah.
It's just like, what do they use to sell dairy?
Calcium.
Calcium. Well, there's never been a case of dietary calcium deficiency ever reported in the world literature, except under synthetic situations.
And what are the problems with dairy?
Well, dairy is made for baby cows. So if you can grow a baby cow from 600 pounds to 2,000 pounds in 6 months, what do you think it does to you?
Similar.
Pretty high octane, right?
Yeah.
It's fattening, of course, 50% fat. Number one cause of allergy, including serious allergy diseases like autoimmune diseases, like rheumatoid arthritis, multiple sclerosis, Crohn's disease, etc. It's dirty. It's infected with all kinds of bacteria and viruses and prions and all kinds of stuff. It's dirty food. And has no dietary fiber. I can't think of anything good for it except to feed baby cows. That's what it's for.
It makes sense. I think you mentioned one time that you wouldn't put sugar in a car and expect it to go. And by the same rationale, we should feed ourselves what we're meant to run on.
Human breast milk for 6 months of life exclusively. Breastfeeding hopefully for 2 or 3 years total. And then switch to what people eat, which is a starch-based diet with fruits and vegetables and a minimal amount of birthday cakes. Not a daily experience. Every day in America they have a birthday party after lunch dinner.
That's true.
I'm
guilty of that. So you mentioned the oils, and we've been told olive oil is so healthy for us. So help us understand why we should eliminate oils because they're a food poisoning.
Okay.
What is it about?
Oil is an isolated concentrated nutrient. Okay. Everything else is gone from the corn or the orange or soybean or whatever. They've taken the protein, the vitamins, the minerals, fiber, everything's gone except for this isolated oil. So it's no longer a food. It's a drug at best.
Okay.
It's a poison at worst.
Wow.
And what this oil does, because it has no other nutrients to protect it. See, normally if you eat a nut or an orange or a banana or whatever, the fat that's in that particular food goes into the cells with a whole bunch of other things, a whole bunch of other nutrients that make it work properly.
Yeah.
If you feed isolated oil, you don't have that balance. And it causes such severe nutritional imbalances that it is one of the leading causes of cancer and promotion of cancer.
Wow.
Some of the oils cause bleeding, like the omega-3s. The omega-6s actually cause the arteries to become more diseased than even animal fat.
Yeah. Okay, so we should not eat the poisons, the animal products, and the extracted oils. We should eat starches. Do we have to worry about potatoes and rice and that stuff making us fat?
Well, that's the lie. You see, until you get over that, and you can get over it right now if you want. I mean, look at Asia. 90% of the diet before 1980 was rice. There were no fat people. I mean, excuse me, folks.
Yeah.
You know, if you look up the calorie concentration of potato, a big potato is like 100, 150 calories. A little tablespoon of oil is 120 calories.
It's not the potato, it's the stuff we put on the potato. Right?
Absolutely. And you know, starches have been maligned because they compete with the more profitable foods in industry. But that's only happened, say, in the last 40 years. It used to be in a family, you'd have mostly starchy foods every day, and maybe on Sunday you'd have fried chicken or something.
Yeah.
But
now it's pervasive.
Every day. Every morning starts out with Easter. Every lunch and dinner are Christmas and Thanksgiving, and every night after dinner is a birthday party.
Yeah.
That's why people are sick.
We just learned how to turn our health around by ceasing to feed ourselves poisonous food. Thank you so much for being part of this community. It makes the journey really meaningful. I look forward to seeing you soon for our next happiness adventure.